Hey, it's your guy Tyrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze the main tactical theme that played a key role in Arsenal defeating Man United 3-2 at the Emirates. So in today's video, first we're going to briefly focus on both sides of shape, then we'll shift to Arsenal's pressing, and lastly we'll focus on Arsenal's wide play. When we break it all down and we do look at the board, we have Man United in a 4-2-3-1 and Arsenal starting in a 4-3-3. When you look at how both sides look to approach the game with their overall shape, you expected Man United to have their wide direct players hugging the touchline, and the same with Arsenal. And then in that midfield zone, it would be 3v3 with Xhaka and Odegaard against McTominay and Eriksen, and Thomas Partey tracking the movement of Bruno. So when we focus on Arsenal and how they look to press, they were looking to ensure that United couldn't build out of the back, and it stemmed with Saka helping Nketiah press the two center backs, and then they had Shaw free in that left back role. In that case, you'd see White pushing forward to close down Shaw, and Saliba would shift across to deal with Rashford. There were scenarios where you witnessed White pushing forward to close down Shaw, and rather than having Odegaard stepping towards Eriksen, he would be closing down McTominay. Thomas Partey would be shifting towards Eriksen to close him down as he drifted near the touchline zone, and then you'd have Xhaka closing down Bruno. And there were times where you'd witness Saka do a very good job of blocking off the passing lane in towards Shaw and ensuring that the ball couldn't be played out in towards him. And then there were times where Arsenal dropped off into their 4-4-2 with Odegaard and Nketiah sitting near McTominay and Eriksen. And there were times where United shifted into more of a 3-2-5 with Wan-Bissaka pushing forward down the right touchline to peg back Martinelli, and then Antony would be able to tuck in towards central areas. But there were situations where Antony wanted the ball on the touchline, and from there you'd witness Wan-Bissaka tucking into central areas, but there would be a 3-2-5 with Shaw sitting a bit deeper. If they wanted to be a bit more adventurous, you'd witness Eriksen pushing forward as well, and that would leave United in more of a 3-1-6, but Arsenal were fairly compact in that zone. And if you had one of Bruno, Antony, or even Rashford looking to drop off in towards those central areas, Xhaka and Thomas Partey were prepared to step towards them to apply pressure. With that being said, the same thing applied for United when they were looking to close down Arsenal, but the biggest issue that they had was that when Rashford or Antony were looking to close down the free center back, Arsenal found it relatively easy to get the ball towards Zinchenko, whether he be in that left back zone near the touchline or shifting laterally in towards the midfield zone to get on the ball. The same thing would apply for White when Rashford was looking to close down Saliba, and on the occasion where those wide players did a very good job of blocking off the passing lanes in towards the fullbacks, it was Odegaard dropping off deeper in towards his own half, getting separation away from Eriksen, and from there he would often receive the ball from Saliba to play the ball back towards a center back, switch the ball towards the opposite side of the pitch for Zinchenko, or simply slide the ball out towards White, who would be free if Rashford was caught higher up the pitch. But ultimately, when we hone into how Arsenal were able to get into good attacking positions, we didn't really see any major shift in terms of how they were looking to attack, as it was either a 3-2-5 or a 4-1-5 that was on display. But when they were getting the ball in that midfield zone and spraying it out into wider areas, you witnessed both Saka and Martinelli struggling to get the better of Shaw and Wan-Bissaka in 1v1s. Martinelli in particular struggled to get the better of the United right back, and what you ended up seeing was that in the early stages it was Xhaka making underlapping runs to pull away McTominay to create space for Martinelli. Early on, he was looking to break towards the byline to pull back the ball towards teammates or runners breaking in, but in those situations, Wan-Bissaka did a very good job of blocking the pullback or ensuring that he won the 1v1 duel to help United push forward. In many of these scenarios, when Martinelli was in 1v1s, there were no runners in behind him to help create space on the overlap, and at times it could be 1v2s, or even in those 1v1 situations, he simply didn't have enough space to create an avenue to shoot or deliver quality crosses in towards the penalty area. The other alternative for Martinelli down that side was to utilize the Xhaka runs in towards the half space, and from there Wan-Bissaka would show Martinelli on towards his right foot, but whenever he looked to get the ball in towards those zones, his shots were wayward, or he would be forced into a poor decision where he'd play a pass in towards one of the United players. It was evident that Martinelli would benefit from either Xhaka or Zinchenko in a deeper position, getting in beyond Antony to force Wan-Bissaka to hold his position, and then from there you could get Martinelli in a position where Wan-Bissaka is not set so that he could either get a shot on goal or look to play in one of his teammates. We witnessed this in the early stages of that opening half, and it was simply Zinchenko receiving the ball beyond Antony, and you you could see that Wan-Bissaka has to hold his position with help from Xhaka's positioning. From there, you have Zinchenko sliding the ball out towards Martinelli. Wan-Bissaka can't get set, and that allows him to pull the ball back across Antony and McTominay for Odegaard, placing him in a legitimate goal-scoring position. But unfortunately for Arsenal, McTominay made a key block. The same thing was applicable in the opening half for Saka against Shaw. You witnessed him get into several 1v1 situations, but whether it be him cutting on towards his left foot or looking to break towards the byline, he struggled to have an impact in that final third. There were rare occasions where Odegaard or White were making overlapping runs to help out Saka, but even in those situations, they failed to execute in the final third, and it was these situations that ensured that Shaw did a very good job of limiting Saka's impact in terms of a legitimate goal-scoring threat. Put simply, if United's fullbacks were set in 1v1s against the Arsenal wide players, they did a very good job of limiting their impact in the final third. So it was Arsenal's duty to get overloads or get overlapping runners to ensure that when they play the ball out and towards those wider areas, the fullbacks aren't set, or they were trying to pull one of the midfielders or the attacking players in towards those wider zones to ensure that they couldn't block the pullback or get them into 1v1 situations where they'd be forced to defend. We witnessed that in the build-up to Arsenal's equalizer, as what you ended up witnessing was Odegaard sliding the ball across McTominay and Bruno for Xhaka, and before Bruno could get set, it was Xhaka playing the ball towards the back post, and yes, Wan-Bissaka did a very poor job of losing Nketiah and giving him a free header from point-blank range. In terms of the second half, you did witness Tomiyasu replace White at right back, and where Arsenal were solely focusing on getting down the left-hand side in the early stages of that opening half, you witnessed that Wan-Bissaka still did a very good job on Martinelli in those situations, but over on the right-hand side, we witnessed more of Odegaard looking to make overlapping runs to help Saka create openings down that flank, but we also witnessed Tomiyasu now pushing forward into advanced positions, and one of the key factors here that did play a key role in Arsenal's success was that Tomiyasu was pushing high and now he was occupying Luke Shaw, and now Saka was able to get into 1v1s against Eriksen where he did fancy himself gaining a yard on him towards his left foot and serving as a legitimate goal-scoring threat. You witnessed that sequence for Arsenal's second goal where Saka was able to get into a 1v1 against Eriksen and then push the ball on towards his left foot to put Arsenal ahead. But even in the build-up to one of Arsenal's better chances in that second half, it starts with a 2v2. Odegaard makes the overlapping run to pull away Shaw. That places Saka in a 1v1 against Eriksen, and it allows him to get the ball onto a stronger left foot. He's gained a yard ahead of him and bent an effort off the post. Ultimately, the substitutions made by the managers prior to the winner didn't shift the pattern of the game significantly. Fred came on for Antony and moved into the midfield zone, pushing Eriksen to the number 10 role and Bruno out towards the right, and Trossard came on for Martinelli to serve as a like-for-like replacement. While the positional alterations and the substitutions didn't tactically impact the game, the players that were involved did play a key role in Arsenal's winner, because it stems down the left-hand side where you see Bruno being caught out of position as he's looking to gamble and press the center back, and Thomas Partey looks to slide the ball in towards Xhaka. McTominay misses it, but because he does miss it, it now falls into the path of Trossard, and because Bruno's caught higher up the pitch, you have an overload being created. Trossard's now looking to turn and run at Wan-Bissaka, and Bissaka can't shift over towards Zinchenko because it is 2v1. But when the ball is played into the path of Zinchenko, you could see that Wan-Bissaka scrambling to close him down, and that results in Zinchenko pulling the ball back towards Odegaard, and although Fred makes a sliding tackle, Odegaard gets enough contact on the ball to guide it in towards Nketiah, who from this position wins the game. So as you could see, while both individual and collective defensive lapses played a pivotal role in the overall outcome, movement in wide areas to support the ball carrier ultimately ensured Arsenal maintained a 5-point lead at the top of the Premier League table.